Every year, a family could be unknowingly wasting anywhere from hundreds to thousands of dollars at the grocery store. Not by buying luxury items, but by falling into hidden pricing traps that are incredibly hard to spot. You think you're spending money on fresh, quality food, but what really drives up your grocery bill is the packaging, the smaller portions, and the convenience that's built into the product. It's the same amount of food, yet the cost per ounce can be several times higher without you ever realizing it. There's a very strange system at work on grocery store shelves, quietly leading us to spend more money every single week through unconscious habits. Could there be something in your shopping cart that's silently driving up your food budget without you ever noticing? Let's break down the 12 most wasteful grocery purchases, starting right now. 12. Pre-washed bagged salad. The first item on the list looks healthy, convenient, and not all that expensive when you look at the price on the shelf. A bag of pre-washed salad greens might cost around $4. You bring it home, open the bag, toss some onto a plate, and dinner is almost ready. No chopping, no washing, and no time spent cleaning up. On a busy day, that convenience is genuinely appealing. But bagged salad can also be one of the most frequently thrown away foods in the kitchen. The first thing you should look at isn't the price of the whole bag. It's the price per ounce. Compared with a whole head of romaine lettuce, a head of iceberg lettuce, or an unprocessed bunch of spinach, the bagged version usually costs significantly more. You're paying extra for the chopping, washing, packaging, and the feeling that it's ready to use. There's something else to notice too. The bag looks full, but a large portion of the space inside is just air. That air helps keep the greens from getting crushed during shipping, but it also makes shoppers feel like they're getting more than they actually are. The bigger problem shows up after you bring the bag home. Pre-cut, pre-washed greens usually lose their quality much faster than a whole head of lettuce. It only takes a little moisture left inside the bag for the edges of the leaves to start turning brown, becoming soft, or getting slimy. Many people open the bag once, use about half of it, then leave the rest in the produce drawer. A few days later, when they remember it, the remaining greens no longer look appealing enough to eat. That's when the real cost starts to show. A $4 bag of salad sounds reasonable, but if you only use half and throw the rest away, you've effectively paid $4 for greens that were only worth $2. Based on the amount you actually ate, that bag is equivalent to an $8 product. The shelf price plus the food you throw away, that's the real cost. A smarter option is to buy whole heads of lettuce, cabbage, or bunches of spinach. These usually cost less per ounce and last longer because the leaves haven't been cut as much. Cabbage is especially worth considering because it keeps much longer in the refrigerator than many leafy greens, and you can use it in salads, soups, stir-fries, or as a side dish. When you bring your greens home, wash them, let them dry thoroughly, then store them in an airtight container lined with paper towels. The paper towels absorb excess moisture, while the sturdy container protects the leaves from getting crushed. Just a few minutes of prep can help keep your greens fresh for most of the week. That doesn't mean bagged salad is always the wrong choice. If the convenience helps you eat more vegetables and you know you'll finish the entire bag, the extra cost may be completely worth it. But if you're throwing part of it away every week, you're not just paying for vegetables. You're paying for food that never even made it onto your plate. At least with bagged salad, you can actually see your money wilting away. The next item still looks perfectly normal, even though the price has gone way up simply because someone cut it for you. 11. Pre-cut fruit. A clear container of pre-cut watermelon or pineapple looks fresh, colorful, and incredibly appealing. That small container makes you feel like you're buying exactly the amount you need. Nothing extra, nothing wasted. But the truth is, the price of that convenience is often far higher than the number you see on the label. When you put a container of pre-cut fruit into your shopping cart, you're not just paying for the fresh fruit. You're also paying for the peeling, washing, packaging, refrigeration, and the grocery store's added profit margin. If you compare unit prices, a whole watermelon in the produce section is usually very inexpensive per pound. But that same watermelon, once it's peeled and cut into cubes, can cost several times more per pound in many cases. The neat little container and the bright refrigerated display make that price difference feel much easier to accept. On top of that, once fruit loses its natural protective peel, it starts deteriorating much faster. Within just a few days, it can become watery or begin changing color. That's when the real cost calculation begins. A $6 container is no longer a $6 purchase if you only eat 2/3 of it before throwing the rest away. Of course, buying pre-cut fruit isn't unreasonable at all. For someone who lives alone, an older adult who doesn't want to handle a knife to cut large fruit, or a family worried they won't finish a whole one, it's still a perfectly sensible choice. That's the real consumer paradox. The smaller container helps reduce waste in terms of quantity, but it dramatically increases the cost per pound. If you want to stretch your grocery budget, you can choose smaller whole fruits or buy unsweetened frozen fruit from the freezer section, which usually costs significantly less per pound. And if you do buy a large fruit, cut it up at home, freeze portions for smoothies, or split it with family members. Saving money doesn't mean being hard on yourself. It simply means recognizing whether you're paying for the nutritional value or for all the extra costs that come with a few minutes of convenience. 10. Single-use bottled water. This may be the heaviest item in your shopping cart, but a significant portion of what you're paying for isn't actually the water inside. Think back to the last time you carried a large case of bottled water from the grocery store to your car. A case like that can disappear in just a few days. Then, by the weekend, out of habit, you toss another one into your cart without even paying much attention to the total on your receipt. But when you break down the cost, most of what you're paying goes toward the plastic bottles, the packaging, the expensive transportation of all that weight, and the brand itself. What seems like a small purchase is actually a recurring weekly expense. Per gallon, bottled water costs far more than filtered tap water at home, and over the course of a year, that money can easily equal the cost of a basic home filtration system, plus multiple replacement filters. That said, this only applies if your local water supply meets safety standards and you feel confident about its quality. Some areas still deal with chlorine taste, aging pipes, or water quality advisories, making bottled water a necessary choice for protecting your health. It's also important to distinguish between your everyday drinking water and your emergency water supply. Keeping a few cases of bottled water at home for unexpected water outages or natural disasters is always a smart decision. This video is not suggesting that you eliminate bottled water from your life entirely, but if your household water supply is safe, using a countertop filter or a faucet-mounted filtration system for everyday drinking can significantly reduce your costs. Pair that with a reusable water bottle when you're out and about, and you'll save a meaningful amount of money, free up storage space, and avoid hauling heavy cases home every week. Bottled water sells you peace of mind. The next item sells you something even more invisible: the power of a familiar name. 9. Name brand spices. What's the big deal if a small jar of spices costs just a few dollars more, right? But that's exactly how major kitchen overspending often begins. A difference of just a few dollars doesn't sound like much, But when your kitchen has 10 or 15 different spices, those extra dollars start showing up on your grocery bill. Standing in front of the spice shelf, our eyes are naturally drawn to the familiar brands in attractive glass jars. But if you turn them around, you'll often find that the ingredient lists are very similar to the budget-friendly versions. What makes that little jar cost so much more is the power of the brand and its very small size, which drives the price per ounce much higher. Meanwhile, store brands like Great Value or the bagged spices found in the international and Latin food aisles often cost significantly less per ounce. That said, a smart shopper doesn't look only at the lower price. Check the ingredient list carefully to see whether you're buying pure spices or a blend filled with added salt, sugar, and other ingredients. Because a product isn't really a bargain if most of its weight is made up of things you don't actually need. There's also a surprisingly interesting waste trap when it comes to buying spices. Open your kitchen cabinet and look at the jars sitting in the back that have been there for a year or two. If they've lost their aroma, the money you thought you saved has disappeared along with it. A giant bag of spices may have a very low price per ounce, but it's still an expensive purchase if you don't use it before it loses its flavor. That's why buying spices wisely always depends on how often you use them. For spices you reach for almost every day, like black pepper, garlic powder, or cinnamon, store brands or bagged spices from the international aisle can significantly reduce your costs. But for spices you only use a few times a year, a small jar is actually the more economical choice, even if the price per ounce is a little higher. Instead of automatically paying extra for a familiar name, focus on freshness, the ingredient list, and how much of that spice you'll actually use. But if spices get you to pay extra for a familiar name, the next item gets you to pay extra just to skip about 30 seconds of prep in the kitchen. 8. Shredded cheese. You're paying extra just to skip about 30 seconds of grating the amount of cheese you need for a meal. But money isn't even the only difference between a bag of shredded cheese and a block of cheese. When you compare them in the dairy case, shredded cheese usually costs noticeably more per ounce. But what most people don't notice is what's inside. To keep the shreds from sticking together, manufacturers often coat them with anti-caking agents such as starch or cellulose. That coating can keep the cheese from melting as smoothly as cheese that's freshly grated from a block, especially in sauces or baked dishes. Think back to the last time you opened a partially used bag of shredded cheese and noticed the shreds around the edges starting to dry out. You bought it to save time, but if the rest goes bad and ends up in the trash, that convenience creates a different kind of waste. That said, it's only fair to point out that shredded cheese isn't always a wasteful choice. For older adults, people with arthritis, wrist pain, or difficulty gripping a grater, the convenience of a pre-shredded bag can be genuinely helpful. There's an important difference between necessary convenience and habitual convenience. Saving money doesn't mean making life harder for yourself. It simply means paying for convenience only when it truly adds value to your life. If using a grater isn't a problem for you, consider buying a block of cheese and spending about 2 minutes shredding enough for the entire week, then storing it in an airtight container. With just a few minutes of prep, you'll lower your cost per ounce while also getting cheese with a fresher, more natural texture for your meals. The extra cost on a single bag of shredded cheese may not seem like much, but the next item is a perfect example of how a small expense, repeated almost every day, can quietly turn into a major drain on your budget. 7. Single-serve yogurt cups. Each small yogurt cup only costs a few cents more than a large tub. But when a small habit is repeated 365 days a year, that difference is no longer small. When you compare the same brand and product line in the dairy case, Those 5 or 6 ounce yogurt cups usually cost noticeably more per ounce than a 32-ounce tub. That's because the manufacturer has to add the cost of each plastic cup, the foil seal, and the entire process of portioning and packaging each serving individually. Depending on the brand and current sales, each single serving cup can cost you about 30 to 40 cents extra for that convenience. Take a look at how those costs add up. Per cup, you pay a few extra cents for pre-portioned packaging. Per week, a family that eats 2 cups a day quietly spends about $5 extra. Per year. At that rate, the hidden cost can add up to more than $250 just for choosing individual cups instead of a larger container. Of course, the small cups do offer real convenience. They make portion control easy and are perfect for packing into a lunchbox for work or school. But if your family eats yogurt at home every day, constantly buying individual cups becomes a surprisingly expensive habit. A simple alternative is to buy a 32-ounce tub instead. At the beginning of each week, spend a few minutes dividing the yogurt into small reusable containers you already have at home. If you choose plain yogurt, you can also decide exactly how much honey or fresh fruit to add, giving you better control over the sweetness. For a family that eats yogurt regularly, this simple habit can save hundreds of dollars a year. That said, if you live alone or only eat yogurt occasionally, buying individual cups is still a perfectly reasonable choice. A large tub only saves money if you finish it before the quality starts to decline or it goes bad. With just the first 6 items, those seemingly small price differences can already add up to hundreds of dollars a year. But the next 6 are even more costly because some of them show up in your shopping cart almost every week, and sometimes every single day. 6. Single-serve coffee pods. Coffee isn't the kind of purchase that shocks you when you look at the receipt after a single grocery trip. The trap is that you pay the extra cost every single morning, when you're barely awake and not thinking about it. Single-serve K-cups and coffee pods are incredibly convenient. In less than a minute, you have a hot cup of coffee without measuring grounds or cleaning up afterward. But when you calculate the cost based on the actual amount of coffee or the number of cups you can brew, single-serve pods are significantly more expensive than a bag of ground coffee of comparable quality. Here's the classic formula behind consumer psychology. Small cost times high frequency equals big waste. Take a look at the box of coffee pods in your kitchen cabinet. Each individual pod seems almost insignificant, but after 4 cups in a day for 2 people, you've already thrown away 4 plastic pods, and tomorrow, you'll repeat the exact same cycle. At that rate, the extra few cents per pod can quietly add up to hundreds of dollars a year. You're not just paying for the coffee beans. You're paying for every plastic pod, every foil lid, and the convenience of the brewing system. Of course, we're not saying that using coffee pods is the wrong choice. For someone who only drinks coffee occasionally, needs a cup as quickly as possible before work, or works in an office, there's still a very practical solution. If you like the convenience of the machine you already have, a reusable pod lets you fill it with your favorite ground coffee and brew almost the same way. And if you're usually making coffee for several people, a simple drip coffee maker or a French press can dramatically reduce the cost per cup. At the same time, don't brew a full pot just because the cost per cup is lower. If you're regularly pouring leftover cold coffee down the drain, a drip coffee maker can create a different kind of waste. Don't choose the brewing method that's cheapest on paper. Choose the one that matches how many cups you actually drink each day. If coffee sells you convenience 1 cup at a time, the next item sells you that same convenience in dozens of little packets sitting in the dry goods aisle. 5. Individually packaged snack packs. That oversized box at the grocery store makes you think you're getting a great bulk deal. But sometimes, the thing taking up the most space inside is nothing more than air and packaging. Walk down the snack aisle, and those individually packaged snack boxes or variety packs, from chips and crackers to dried fruit and nuts, are incredibly tempting. They give you the feeling of perfect portion control and unmatched convenience. But if you look at the price per ounce on the shelf tag, you'll quickly realize you're paying far more than you would for a single large bag of the exact same product. Variety packs, in particular, hide a very subtle waste trap: the cost of the snacks nobody eats. Think about the corner of your kitchen pantry. There are always 2 or 3 unpopular flavors left sitting in the box week after week because nobody in the family wants them. They weren't free bonuses. Those are snack packs you paid for with your own money, only to watch them sit there until they expire and end up in the trash. The real cost of that box isn't just the price on the shelf. It also includes the value of every pack that gets left behind. Of course, individually packaged snacks do have real value. They're incredibly convenient for packing school lunches, taking on picnics, or helping people who need strict portion control so they don't accidentally finish an entire large bag. But if you're simply snacking at home every day, there are much smarter ways to lower your costs. Portion them yourself. Buy one large, resealable bag, or buy the single flavor that everyone in your household actually likes. Then spend 2 minutes dividing it into reusable containers or food storage bags you already have. You'll get the same convenience at a significantly lower cost. Respect your family's habits. Don't buy a variety pack just because it looks like a better selection if everyone in your household really only eats 1 or 2 flavors. That said, if you know you have a hard time stopping once you open a large bag, causing the snacks to go stale or leading you to eat far more than you intended, then individually packaged portions can actually be a perfectly reasonable safeguard. If individually packaged snacks sell you convenience 1 bite at a time, the next item sells you that very same convenience. But this time, you'll find it in the fresh food section. 4. Pre-packaged deli meat. Those neatly stacked slices of deli meat in a plastic tray make the package look full and appealing. But the next time you walk past the refrigerated case, look at the actual weight, not the size of the container. When you buy prepackaged deli meat from major brands, you're not just paying for the meat itself. You're also paying for the rigid plastic packaging, the industrial packaging process, and the brand's marketing costs. A large container may look like it's packed with meat, but in reality, it often contains only about 7 or 8 ounces. There's something else to think about. Remember a very familiar experience. You open a package of deli meat on Monday to make 2 sandwiches. By Thursday, the few slices left in the tray have started drying out around the edges. The quality has declined, and they no longer look as appealing as they did when you first opened the package. If you don't finish them in time, those leftover slices end up increasing the real cost of the meat you actually ate. To avoid falling into this pricing trap, build one simple habit. Don't just compare the prices of 2 packages. Check the price per pound or price per ounce as well. That small number printed on the shelf tag will tell you whether the pre-packaged meat is actually more expensive than your other options. That doesn't automatically mean the deli counter, where meat is sliced to order, is always cheaper. The deli counter has one important advantage. It lets you buy exactly the amount you need for the next 2 or 3 days, helping reduce waste. But the price per pound there can still be high. That's why checking the unit price in both places is the deciding factor. If you're trying to stretch your grocery budget for everyday meals, you can also consider preparing your own sandwich meat. A store-bought rotisserie chicken, or chicken breast, or pork loin roasted at home over the weekend. can provide multiple sandwich portions at a lower cost per meal once you spend a little time slicing and storing it, as long as you use everything you prepare. Of course, for someone who lives alone, has difficulty handling a knife, or needs to put together lunch as quickly as possible, buying a small package of pre-sliced deli meat is still a perfectly reasonable trade-off. Simply getting into the habit of checking the price per pound makes it much easier to tell whether you're paying for the meat itself or for the packaging and convenience that come with it. At least with deli meat, you can clearly see what you're buying. With the next item, the sauce and seasonings can make it much harder to tell what you're actually paying for. 3. Pre-cut, pre-marinated meat. 5 minutes of prep by the manufacturer can become some of the most expensive 5 minutes in your family's dinner. In the refrigerated meat section, trays of pre-sliced beef for stir-fry, BBQ marinated chicken breasts, or pre-skewered pork always look incredibly appealing. They stand out with their glossy sauces, rich colors, and the promise of a quick dinner after a long day at work. But take a closer look at what you're actually paying for. That price includes the cutting, the seasoning, the marinade, the packaging, and the convenience of having everything ready to cook. More importantly, the marinade, which often contains sugar, salt, oil, or water, is included in the total weight of the package. That means the price per pound on the label doesn't reflect just the amount of meat you're getting. It's also being spread across all of the marinade inside. On top of that, the dark-colored sauce makes it harder to judge the surface, the amount of fat, and the true freshness of each piece compared with unseasoned meat. That said, pre-marinated meat isn't always a bad decision. For someone who lives alone, someone with a busy schedule who wants to cook as quickly as possible without buying a full bottle of sauce, or someone who has difficulty using knives, a small tray of pre-marinated meat can be a perfectly reasonable convenience. But if you're trying to stretch your family's grocery budget, you can simply buy unseasoned meat instead. That lets you clearly see the quality and compare prices more easily. Over the weekend, spend a little time slicing the meat yourself and preparing a batch of your favorite marinade. Then divide it into smaller airtight portions and store them in the refrigerator. On busy weeknights, all you have to do is take one out and cook it, while your grocery budget goes toward the meat you're actually eating. If pre-marinated meat gets you to pay extra for the sauce, the item in the number 2 spot charges you for almost the entire preparation process, and you'll find it waiting in the freezer aisle. 2. Name brand breakfast cereal. You're not just paying for the cereal inside the box. You're paying for the cartoon characters on the front, the multi-million-dollar advertising campaigns, and the premium shelf space placed right at eye level in the grocery store. In the cereal aisle, most of us automatically reach for the familiar brands we've known since childhood. This is where consumer psychology works at its strongest. We naturally associate familiar with better quality. Kids are drawn to the colorful characters on the box, while adults often buy out of pure habit. But if you take a moment to look at the bottom shelf, you'll often find store-brand cereals like Great Value or larger bagged options. Turn the boxes over and compare the nutrition labels. You may be surprised to find that the sugar, fiber, and essential vitamin content are remarkably similar, while the price per ounce of the name brand version is significantly higher. For families that go through 3 or 4 boxes of cereal each month, that price difference can add up to a substantial amount over the course of a year. Of course, store brands don't always taste exactly the same. But if you want to know whether your family really needs to pay extra for a familiar name, try a simple experiment at home. Pour the name brand cereal and the store brand version into 2 unlabeled bowls. Then see whether your family members can actually tell which one costs more. The results may surprise you. Before putting a box of cereal into your shopping cart, Check the sugar content, the fiber content, and the price per ounce. Don't pay for the cartoon character on the front of the box. Pay for the nutritional value your family is actually getting. But cereal only gets you to pay extra for the brand. The number one item gets you to pay extra for almost everything, from the ingredients and preparation to the packaging, freezing, and the promise that it'll save you time. 1. Frozen single-serve meals. A frozen meal may look inexpensive on the price tag, but if it becomes a regular part of your routine, it can be one of the most expensive ways to feed yourself throughout the month. Walk down the freezer aisle and you'll find frozen pasta, chicken and rice, or meatball meals priced at just a few dollars each. At first glance, they seem like a great bargain. But here's the catch. The portion inside is often much smaller than the box makes it appear. And for many people, it simply isn't enough for a full meal. Picture this. You take a $4 frozen meal out of the microwave and realize it barely covers half the plate. So you end up adding 2 slices of bread, a small salad, or some fruit on the side, and you're still hungry an hour later. At that point, your $4 meal is no longer really a $4 meal. A frozen entree plus a few extra side dishes may not seem like much on any given day. But repeat that 3 or 4 times a week, and those small extra costs quickly become a meaningful part of your monthly grocery budget. When you buy a frozen meal, you're paying for the ingredients, the preparation and cooking, the industrial freezing process, the packaging, and the convenience of simply heating it up. That said, let's be fair. Frozen meals are not the enemy. For someone who lives alone, gets home late after work, or has those days when they're simply too exhausted to cook, they can be an incredibly useful backup option. The key isn't to eliminate them completely, it's to change how you use them. Instead of building your everyday meal plan around frozen entrees, keep just 1 or 2 in the freezer for days when you don't have the time or energy to cook. Whenever you're making pasta sauce, curry, or a stew, prepare 2 or 3 extra servings, divide them into airtight containers, and freeze them. Then, whenever you need a quick meal, you'll still have something ready to heat up, but you'll have complete control over the ingredients and portion size while significantly lowering the cost of each meal. One frozen meal by itself won't break your budget. It's buying them over and over again that quietly turns convenience into one of the most expensive items in your freezer. Looking back at this list, the key takeaway isn't whether a product is expensive or cheap. It's about how often we pay for convenience out of habit. Saving money doesn't mean making life harder for yourself. Choosing shredded cheese or a frozen meal can be absolutely the right decision when you need to save time and energy. A smart shopper pays for convenience only when it truly adds value, instead of buying on autopilot. Those small price differences, when you keep them in your pocket, can add up to hundreds of dollars a year, giving you more room in your budget for your health and your family. Out of everything on this list, which item shows up most often in your shopping cart? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more helpful content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.